Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and today I'm joined by Gary Beckwith. Now, he is a visionary entrepreneur, a best-selling author, and founder of City Cruises, the family-run company that literally transformed tourism on the River Thames. Today's show is sponsored by Frederick J. Fisher. He is a true pioneer. I know Fred. He is a true pioneer in professional liability insurance with over 50 years of experience. And as president of Fisher Consulting Group and founder of ELM Insurance Brokers, Fred has reshaped the industry with sharp insight and a deep commitment to protecting his clients. He is also the author of Claims Made Insurance, the policy that changed the industry, and a founding member and past president of the Professional Liability Underwriting Society. So for expert guidance on liability and risk, and listen, if we own a business or we have any kind of services, we have liability and risk. Fred Fisher is the trusted name, helping professionals secure their financial future and navigate complex insurance challenges. You can find him online at Fisher Consulting Group and on LinkedIn. Now let's turn to my guest. Gary joins me to talk about his book, his businesses, and the lessons that every entrepreneur can use. Now, this is a fascinating book. It's a fascinating story. Gary founded his first business in the late 1970s, turning his background in casinos and hospitality into City Cruises PLC, which turned out to grow up to be the UK's largest tour boat company. And along the way, he modernized what was essentially a cottage industry. He lobbied for legislation and even hosted prime ministers, celebrities, and royalty. And after selling City Cruises in 2019, he began investing in new ventures, sharing his vision and leadership across industries. So today, he is going to share insights from his book, How to Make a Million in Business. It is on my desk. And he's got so much to talk about. I need to get out of the way. But this is what I'm really waiting for. He's also going to share with us and reflect on milestones like meeting the Queen Elizabeth II, and celebrating his wife Rita's OBE while offering practical advice for entrepreneurs who want to scale without losing their company's heart. Good morning, Gary. It's good to have you here, and thank you for sending me that fascinating book.
Well, thank you for having us on, and good morning. Good morning, America.
There you go. And, I have to tell you, I read that book 2.5 to 3 times. When it landed here, I kind of, I did the page flip like, oh, let me see what's in here. And I started putting sticky notes in it. And then I read it again about a month ago because I knew you were coming on the show, and reviewed it all over the place. And then it got fatter, more sticky notes, more index cards. And then I read it this past weekend because, you were scheduled. It's a terrific book. And thank you. Thank you for writing it.
Well, my daughter, when we sold the company, my daughter said, "Dad, you should write the story." And I said, "Well, I'm not sure people really get excited about autobiographies." And my friend's an author, and I spoke to him about that, and he said, "Well, maybe just write a business book. Write it the story, the story of what happened and how you grew and the milestones and the challenges, and write it as a business book. And How to Make a Million is kind of how that was born." And I've been teaching in schools and colleges and lecturing in universities as a volunteer teacher and lecturer for a number of years. So I guess I kind of had the story. So I found it fairly easy to get the story down. It wasn't as if I had to sit there thinking about it. It really was all the challenges that I'd seen and dealt with and been upset with and celebrated and the ups and downs of business in general, and kind of got there. And I was really delighted with the way the book turned out.
Well, it's both biography and business book. And honestly, you said something very important. The stories. The stories are what keep us listening and keep us reading.
Yeah, yeah, they're great, and some really great things that we managed to do, and I know how complicated it was. We started the business in 1977. So I started. It was a fuel barge. It was just a barge laying at anchor in the middle of the River Thames. So there was no shore access. So I'd have to get a boat over in the morning to my barge and then stay there all day and supply the passenger boats with diesel. And that's how I earned my money to start with. And my dad had left my mum when I was 8. And it was my dad's idea of doing this. I didn't think it was a particularly good idea, being stuck in the middle of the river at such a young age, selling diesel all day. And of course, I did have the problem of telling my mum that I was going to work with Dad, so that didn't go down too well. But
No, I can imagine.
but one of the lessons I realised is that this is one of the 4 ways to grow the business: get your customers to spend more money. But I was selling diesel; I didn't have any other product, and there was no other boats. I couldn't invent customers, because you needed to be a boat that needed diesel to come to me to get diesel. So then I introduced other things, like I started doing colour gas, so that people would use the colour gas on cooking on board the boats. And then I started using distilled water. Distilled water, years ago when I started, that's what you used to have to put in the batteries. You don't tend to do that nowadays. The batteries are much more self-contained. And I sold grease, and then eventually I turned to selling barrels of beer, because the boats needed barrels of beer, and it was very difficult to get barrels of beer. This was before um, uh, beer in bottles was as popular as they are today. Everybody likes their beer coming out of a keg. So we did kegs of beer, and we did canned beer, and then we did soft drinks. Then we started doing spirits, and then obviously the stock levels that I hold in were much greater. There was more money that we needed to invest into the business. And so it grows. And then we started doing, well, they needed everything a boat needed, was like toilet rolls and cocktail cherries, and we were open all hours. We got really busy in the summer. I mean, we struggled in the winter, obviously, because boats are not so busy. And that's how we started. And then, so when the guys were coming over, I wanted them to come over, and I wanted to get the stock on the boat as easy as possible. And I didn't want them to do it, because I just wanted it to be an easy experience coming to my my petrol forecourt. Really, that's what it was. So I used to put the kettle on and have some biscuits there, and the guys used to come in, and they'd have a cup of tea and a biscuit, and they'd be chatting. And because it was a barge in the middle of the river, I could have 2 boats normally, sometimes 3 boats, because they'd moor up against each other. So there was always people in my little Cafe La Barge. And so there was always people in there talking, and because that gives you market intelligence. And
I was just going to say, that's how you find out what they actually really need, not what you think they need.
Yeah. And also it's a mixture, because some of the people that own the boats were owner skippers, owner captains, and others would be working for another owner. So I got the mix of the owner's version and the crew's versions, the employee captains as well. And on one occasion, a guy came in and he said, "I'm buying another boat." And I thought, "Oh, well, that's good," because that wasn't working at the time. And I thought, "Oh, well, that's good." He said, "But I'm selling my other boat, the one that I've got now." And I thought, "Oh, well, one minute I've got a new customer, and the next few seconds I've lost him already." And he said, "I'm going to sell it." So I said, okay. And I had a quick chat with him about it, and then I said, "Well, I'll buy it." So
Now,
there we go.
Gary, what kind of boat was it?
Well, it was a 1900. She was built in 1902. She was called the King. She was wooden. She was an open boat. And she used to go from Westminster, which is right in the centre of London, right next to Big Ben. That's where our office was. And it used to go upstream to Hampton Court, and the boat would be gone all day. You'd leave in the morning, and it'd be gone for a minimum of 7 hours, sometimes 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12, depending on how the tides were doing.
What was it? Was he people hauling? What was he doing?
Yeah, it was a passenger boat. It was a cycle boat. It was the first one. And the downside, again in business, the boat struggled. We struggled to do any work in the winter because it was predominantly open. Although it had a saloon, you was really limited on how many people you could get in the saloon. And so it really wasn't a winter boat. And so as we'd expanded, all of a sudden I realized that the opportunity was, if we were going to be in the boating business, we kind of needed to get a boat that we could operate all year. So that was in the beginning of 1985 that we started negotiations. We bought the boat in that year, and we started operating. And then the following year, we bought another boat, which basically allowed us to work all year, with the intention of selling the King at the earliest opportunity, which ended up happening about 4 years later. So to get rid of the summer-only boat and start working on boats that we could operate all year.
Well, that makes sense, and that's a big leap from, being a barge. And when you're talking about, the oil and the gas, I keep thinking of planes that are refueling in the middle of the sky. We all need fuel. I don't know why that popped in my head, but it did. But you're right. It's limited as to what you can do, and people do have to come to you. And I would imagine, and I just have to ask, how in the world did you market it? Or did you just sit in the middle of the Thames and say, hey, here, we're here? How did that work?
Yeah, well, being a cottage industry, the owners of the river, which are called the Port of London Authority,
Right.
along with the government, which was then the Greater London Council, and the riparian. There's 32 riparian boroughs in London. Riparian means that they touch the River Thames somewhere along. So we had 32 London boroughs, and a lot of the London boroughs were riparian boroughs touching the River Thames. So the working environment was pretty ancient, and things had been done this way, so they were always going to be done this way. So you ended up having a 26 weeks license to operate on the River Thames, which operated on the first Monday before the Good Friday, unless it was the second Monday in April if Easter hadn't come along. So you can see how complex that was.
Yeah.
And then there was a date in September and October that you had to finish by. And then you had to go into a ticket box, which was shared by all the boat owners, and you were time allocated. So on Monday, you was the first boat. You was allowed 30 minutes from, I think it was 9 till 9:30. And then the second boat went in at 9:30 till 10. And the following day, if you were first boat, the next day you were second boat. You can see how complex that was, and very difficult to market a product to a customer, because we didn't even know what we were doing, let alone the customer trying to work out. So, and I realized that was really complicated. And I realized straight away that the only way to be any good at doing this business was that you had to buy all the licenses, and the route that I wanted to operate on, there was 14 licenses, 14 owners, and 14 boats.
Oh my.
And I started buying those companies out one by one, and eventually I completed it. And the first thing I did is, once I got all 14 licenses, was go back to the government and say, I've now got all 14 licenses. I want to rationalize the industry, make the boats bigger, make the boats better, start training, get the crews in uniform, have a proper timetable, and start marketing the River Thames in London.
Hmm.
And they went, "Oh, okay." I said, "But you've got to give me a 10-year license." And this is the part that we campaigned for with government, to give us a 10-year license, which we could then take to the bank and then start talking to the bank about making plans and employing people and having sales plans and marketing plans and branding and doing deals with clients. We were doing a deal with British Airways, for example, and we were 2 years out when we were just talking to them, trying to work out what their needs were. And we spent a couple of years doing that before the contract even came into place. And we could only do that with a long-term contract, of course. You can't do that with a 26 weeks contract. So that was the so I could see where we needed to go. It just took us quite a long time to get there.
Well,
Um,
anytime you have to deal with bureaucrats or the government, whatever time you think you have, times it by 3.
yeah.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, I think with government the way it is, I think it's easier for a civil servant to say, um, I can't say yes because I don't know the implications, so I'm going to say no because then nothing
Hmm.
changes and I can't mess up. And you understand? Yeah, I
Yep.
understand. It's
Yeah.
frustrating for businesses, but I understand
You have more patience than I would have ever.
it.
I couldn't do it because I would be, yelling at people all the time, which doesn't work, by the way. I've tried it. So you you mentioned that you rationalized consortiums and you lobbied for new legislation. Let's talk about the prime ministers and the celebrities and the royalty. That didn't happen by accident, did it?
Well, I knew I was passionate. I knew that things were changing. 1948. If you went to a hotel in Wales, for example, there was only 2 bedrooms in the whole of Wales that had ensuite bathroom. Today, nobody would dream of going into a hotel room if it didn't have an ensuite. That that progress was phenomenal, and that was happening in every single area, whether it be restaurants, planes, or whatever, cars, anything that you could see. People's expectation was going up. So I wanted to start to build a fleet of boats that when the customer got on, they just went, wow. And that's what I told my team. That's what I want when the customer gets on. So I decided to build a new boat. And so this was like 93. And I was kind of trying to work out how to do that 94. And then I went to loads and loads of banks and they all kept saying no. So I thought, well, I still need to build this boat. I'm going to build it out of cash flow, which I have to say was so difficult because it literally took every piece of cash out of the business and really stifled any other areas of development that we were trying to do at the same time. But then I believed it was the right thing to do. And then having built it, I thought, oh, we need somebody to name it. So we wrote to Buckingham Palace and we sent a letter over there, a request over saying, we've just built the new first sightseeing boat on the River Thames for 25 years. Would the Queen come and name the boat? And we got a really lovely letter back, which we duly framed, and it says, thank you for the invite, but the Queen hasn't set her diary. And that was a really lovely report, and she signed it and dated it and sent it to us. And we put that in a frame, and then we had that up on one of our existing boats. And then a few weeks later, we got another letter saying the Queen's now done a diary. Would the 18th of October be suitable? And we were gobsmacked. We had no idea that, having asked and having got the thank you, but no thank you, although it was still open, we were just amazed. And so we had loads and loads of meetings with Buckingham Palace and the equerries and the uh, protection division. And the day came, and there she was, and she came with Philip, and we had the good and the great. That we had our local MPs, and we had the chairman of the Port of London Authority, and the good and the great. We had most of them were the staff that actually got me there. We was kind of mindful of the team that had got me there, so they was in big numbers on board the boat. And we had some of our suppliers as well that we'd been working with, some of the tour operators. And there she came, and it was phenomenal. We did have a bit of a mishap on the day because the protection division had said, it's best that you don't have the teas and coffees in the same area as the Queen's going to come into, because she won't be here for the tea or coffee. So we put one of our other boats next door to our boat, and we had the tea and coffee in there. Unfortunately, the day was a bit cold and chilly and drizzly, and we'd gone on the first boat for the teas and coffees, and everybody had been in there. And then as we got off that boat, we had the Irish Guards were playing on the top deck, and we had some huge umbrellas up there. Luckily, because the weather was a bit inclement. And when we went on, of course, the one thing that happened was the condensation was huge, because it was like taking over 100 people and putting them onto the new boat, and the condensation just hit the windows, and we couldn't stop it. We couldn't get the temperature of the existing boat up quick enough, because we were instructed that we need to do it this way and that timing. So we're sat on the brand new sightseeing boat in London, and you can't even see out the windows because the condensation. And we were just going through London Bridge, and we had one of the Queen's watermen on board doing a commentary. And he said, in front, he said, and we're just going through London Bridge, which was opened by, normally you'd say Her Majesty the Queen, but it's very difficult when she's sat about 4 feet in front of you. So he went, by you. So that was quite funny. And we went through London Bridge, and Philip leant across me. I had the Queen on my left and Philip on the right. We were sat down at the front of the boat. And Philip leant across and said, Elizabeth, there's the globe. Can you see it? And she went, no, which was really just made me absolutely die and wish I was being eaten up by a giant whale at that stage. And luckily, somebody bright enough, while I was in the middle of a panic, said, should we go onto the top deck and we'll get a much better view of London, which was exactly the right thing to do.
Oh, yeah. Now, the top deck, was that open air?
It was, yeah. The top. So we sightseeing on the top, and inside the saloon, that allowed us to do operate dinner cruises of an evening and private charters. So the boat was fantastic. It was called the Millennium of London, and we had it built. We had it built in Wales, and then we sailed that round from Wales, which was about 800 miles at sea. So yeah, so really sturdy. So that was really good. And that was it. So that was 96, and almost we'd only kind of just got over the Queen naming it, and then the government said we want to run an exhibition in London to celebrate the new millennium. So the government of the day then was gifted a site by the British Gas Company. They gifted a huge piece of land, and there was a bit of surface cleaning that they had to do. And then the government said, well, why don't we just build a giant exhibition? And we bid for we bid to take people to and from the exhibition. And there were 68 people had bid for that. And the document was huge. And I looked at this document, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, I don't think anyone's going to read this document.
No.
So I employed a guy who reads documents like this for fun. And I employed him. I said, I want you to read that document, and I want to make a bid that's compliant. And I'm gambling everything that we will be the only company that are compliant. And we were. And we won the bid. And the next problem I had was to build 4 boats, bigger than the one that I built in '96, and this was '97. I had to build 4 boats in a line to be ready for the 1st of January 2000, and had no money. And so I went to 16 banks, and eventually I went back to the Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott, at the time, and said to him, "You've given me the contract, sir, but the bank want to see the physical contract before they lend me the money, and the boat builders want they want the bank to know that they're going to lend me the money." And I said, "It's going around it's just going around in a circle." And I said, "Would you mind if you chaired the meeting and where we get the bank and the boatyard and us and you all in the same room?" And he went, "No problem." So and after that, it was instantly. Then we just started, going ahead and building the money. We never had the money, and I went round to banks after banks after banks, and they all kept saying no. And then I'd walk out and say, "Look, I know you're not going to lend me the money, but in my presentation, what could I have done better?" And bless them, they all told me. So every time I made a bid, the bid was better and better. And then I went to an exhibition one day up in Birmingham, and there was a guy, there was a finance, there was like a banking thing there. And it was a coach uh, show, and so I went to him and I said, "Oh, I need some money." And he said, "What have you got?" I said, "Well, I need some coaches." So he said, "Oh, okay. How much do you need?" I said, "Well, um, I think I need £5 million." And he went, "Oh, that's a lot of coaches." I said, "Well, they're not they're not exactly coaches. They're boats, but it's the same thing, isn't it?" And he went, "Well, I suppose so. Yeah, I'll go along with that." And he came back to me and he said, "I can't do the 5 million, but what I will do is, if you can find another bank, I'll do 2 boats." And he then helped me find another bank to do 2 boats, and we syndicated the loan. Now, I didn't even know that you could do that. I had no idea that you could get more than one bank working together. It had never entered my head. So
You wouldn't think that they would want to do that.
no, absolutely. I was like, anyway, we borrowed the money and we built the boats, and they all arrived on the 1st of January 2000. And we run to the dome, we run to the exhibition. And the thing is, when we made the bid, there was a bit in there which allowed me to do the legacy. And the legacy was, I wanted to go to extend my route. When I got all the boats together, I was going from Westminster to Tower, which was the volume end of the market. But I actually wanted to go and extend to Greenwich because that was the natural thing I thought that the business should do. And the legacy, we fought for the legacy to give us that right to run down to Greenwich. So when we finished the year of the dome, we then automatically went into legacy. And then, because that was a 10-year license. And if during that 10 years you invested more money, they'd extend it by the amount of money that you invested. So a never-ending contract. So all of a sudden, when we got that get into legislation and asking them to make these licenses, we changed the industry by necessity, but with us in mind, really. And then we just started doing things like you normally do, training and teaching and apprenticeships and uniforms and, all the good things that there are about business, handbooks and health and safety and processes. And yeah, it's really cool time. I never stopped learning. Every day was a school day for me. It was just phenomenal. And I had none of this knowledge was there. I learned it all by just physically just doing it and expanding like crazy. So
Well, and you have excellent instincts, and you don't give up.
yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. Well, I just thought it was I thought it was natural, and I thought it would be I thought it would be more of a risk not to do it than to do it. I guess that's where I was coming from. So, and also I thought if I didn't do it, somebody else might do it, and I wouldn't want to be second.
Right.
Not with having so much money. We owed so much money. I can't tell you. And people said to me, "Did you ever worry about it?" I said no, because it was too much. I had no idea what it meant. I said, but I guess the guys that lent me the money were probably a little bit
Right.
to start with. But we
There's some numbers you just can't comprehend. You just keep on going.
yeah, absolutely. So really cool, really cool.
I wanted to ask you, I mean, we talked about the Queen, and
Yeah.
I've heard other stories about her. I've had one other guest that worked with her, and she was the patron for the work that he does, and he was at her funeral, and we both cried when he started describing that. But your wife, this is a family business. You mentioned your daughter, you mentioned your wife, Rita. She
Yeah.
received an OBE. Tell me about that.
Well, Rita is so smart. I mean, she can't be that smart because she picked me, but she's so smart.
Smack your hand. Raise your left hand up, raise your
Yeah.
right hand, and smack your left hand. Say, "Bad Gary."
But we she should have been a barrister. She has this mind. She she found she found a mistake in the VAT book. This is a tax that's
Yeah, the VAT for those of you who are in America with me, that's like the IRS, I believe.
Yes, and
taxes.
yeah, and she'd found a mistake. They'd actually worked out. This was on fuel, on inland waterway fuel taxation, and she realised that they'd made a mistake. They'd made an assumption that was wrong, and so Rita pointed it out to them, and they went, "Oh, thank you. We need to change that." So they changed it. I mean, who reads this stuff? I mean, Rita, obviously. So that was her mind. She was the CEO from 2000. She'd been the managing director up to there, but as we were getting bigger and bigger, we needed to take on much more staff and more management. We were growing with management all over the place, and Rita had got heavily into working in a lot of the trade organisations, joining the committees, becoming uh, the chairman of a lot of these things, and working those through. And on one of the things, she was working for the London Docklands business section, and that got merged with the London Chamber of Commerce, and that put her on the board of the London Chamber of Commerce. And so whenever there was uh, an opportunity in terms of newspapers or television to get a business view, Rita was one that they normally called on, and it was just fantastic because we were in tourism right in the middle of London. So it was really good mileage for her. And she'd done some amazing work. So she got her, I believe, award for the regeneration of London Docklands and the advances in tourism. And she's got the Order of the British Empire medal, which was fantastic. So we went to Buckingham Palace where she received that. And that was in the year of the 2012. We had the Olympics in London as well that year as well. So super year for us. That really was. And well deserved. She's very bright. So
I think your whole family is, and you're very, very dedicated, apparently, to making a business grow. But from what I'm hearing you say and what I read in the book, your focus in making the business grow was serving other people, serving your customers, serving your clients. I mean, yes, you want to make a ton of money. Yes, you want to pay the bills. You want to pay the banks. But you did it, from what I can understand, by listening and learning and meeting your customers where they were.
oh yeah, I mean, get your customers to come back. You know, you know, uh, get your customers to spend more money. Get your customers to come back and get new customers, the type you want. So to get your customers back, I love the story of McDonald's. What a great business model. We all know it's about the freeholds and building the business so it's strong enough to pay a lively rent through onto the freeholds, and then the franchisees, whether that be in-house or external, that they're running their business and they're paying a little bit more for their hamburgers, but it's going back to HQ. It's a fantastic business model, but they get their customers come back because you go anywhere in the world and you know what product you're going to get. And I don't think
I don't go to fast food places, but my understanding has always been you can go Southwest Louisiana or go on over to England. If you ask for an Egg McMuffin, you're going to get what you got here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I love that about businesses. But this is a big statement, and it may not be true, but I can't believe anybody in the world has ever gone into a McDonald's and bought a bag of chips. Because I think you go in and buy a hamburger. You walk in with the intention,
Right.
I'm only going to buy a hamburger. I'm not having the chips. I'm not having the strawberry milkshake. I'm not doing that. All
Right.
things that are terribly good for you. But you go in there and you get to that counter and somebody pokes you in the eye and says you want a meal, and you buy.
Yeah, you want they
a meal.
bundle it for you.
Uh,
You don't have to think about it. And
Get
by
your
chips, of course, you mean
oh,
French fries.
very pricey.
Yeah.
Get your customer to spend more money. I think McDonald's are fantastic at that. They get you to spend more money, even though you know what they're trying to do. And before you get in there, you're going to make your mind up. I'm only having a hamburger, and as soon as you get in there, you go blah blah blah. And
Yeah, I need number 5, number 6, and give me number 8 too. I know, I see it all the time with friends. They're like, "Oh," and they'll, get back to the car and they've got a bunch of food. And are you hungry? No, but they made me do it. Like, sure
yeah.
they did.
And I took that lesson when we went to the Dome. I sold people a reserve seat on one of our river liners, and threw in a cup of tea, and they could have 1 or 2 cups of tea, whatever. It didn't matter. They could have tea or something. And we just charged them a little bit more money. So we were packaging up then, and then we took that forward, and then we started to do that with a dinner cruise. So I got my team. I went, right, well, we're gonna get out the disco market because it's a nuisance. It's noisy. It's a pain, and I'm always worried about kids drinking underage, and I was paranoid that people would be taking drugs, and I didn't want to get any involved with anything that was going to give us a bad reputation. We was trying to be the family business and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so we tried. When I think about just where we tried to go with that with the dinner cruise, and it was how to get it, and because my team are saying, yeah, but we do quite nicely. We make quite a lot of money. It's a good bar take. I went, it's not the future. I want to be doing a dinner cruise, so it runs 7 nights a week. I'm not just busy on a Friday and Saturday. So we started the dinner cruise, and so that we gave you a welcome drink. It was a meal, half a bottle of wine. There was entertainment. There was dancing. It was a package, and it was much better for us to package it up like McDonald's had done, and that's kind of what we did. Then we came to what entertainment, and my team said, "Oh, can't we get a band like the Beatles?" And I went, "No, don't be silly. There's 4 of them." I said, "We need a one, and you do that, and the only one you got to be Elvis." So then we all differed.
Or Elton John.
Well, it was 90. Well, it was 94 we started. So I decided that it was going to be Elvis. So there was a competition on television, and it was like, who are you going to be tonight? And they were going to, and they're going to be all these different people. And then because everybody wanted to be Elvis, and the program wouldn't do Elvis. Otherwise, you'd have an Elvis on every week. And they got to the stage where they said, do you know what we're going to do is we're going to do a competition, and we're going to find the best Elvis in the country, or we're at the top 10. Well, they couldn't get down. They're down to 10. They got 11. They got 11 of these guys. So I wrote to the television program and gave them letters which was inviting them to come down to do an audition in London, and we were going to offer them a year's working as Elvis. And so we did that. And because when you get a collection of Elvises, they're called Elvi, I think. So we had all these Elvi coming, and it was really funny.
I can see it in my head. You get
Oh,
into an elevator and you got a bunch of
I
Elvi
think
in there.
it was the funniest time and greatest night we've ever had out in our life. Just all these guys, and so good. They were absolutely phenomenal, which is why they'd been the pick of the best.
Right.
And eventually we picked a couple, and we gave them a year's contract each, and it was great. And then they lived with me because they were from up north. So my kids grew up thinking Elvis lives in our house.
When did you break it to? That's like saying there's no Santa, honey. That's not really Elvis.
I know. And then because my son Matthew, he grew up, and on a Friday and Saturday, I'd take him on the boat with me because the rest of the day was at school. And he's a mimic. He mimics people, and he's so good at it. And so now I've got a tiny little, my son. I mean, my son's 40 now, but he's Elvis. And they were doing the talent thing at school, and he went along as Elvis, and all the girls were screaming, and just so much fun. Yeah, it was a real good time of our life and the funs, and just doing that. Yeah, it's really, really great. And the ultimate was that turned into a phenomenal product. It became the biggest product that we were doing in the company.
I bet. You know what I want to? I just made a note because I have to ask. You have to interrupt, or I'll forget it again. But did you ever do a high tea? I'd travel to go do that.
Yeah, we did. Well, when we got when we started doing the dinner cruise, then I needed to have a chef on the boat, and then I thought, putting a chef on a boat. Now, occasionally, a chef may be temperamental, only occasionally.
No.
Yeah. I've heard that. I've heard that occasionally they get temperamental.
It's true, by the way.
So I thought, well, actually, if I'm going to be doing a second and third boat, I don't want to have a chef on every boat. So what I did is I built kitchens, floating kitchens, and put them alongside my pier. And what I did was I made the boats come back in to pick up the hot food en route. And it meant that I only had one chef to do my whole fleet. So when we're really busy, which is New Year's Eve, we were doing 2,000 people for dinner.
Oh, gosh.
I had one chef plus commie chefs and other chefs that he needed. But it didn't mean that I had chefs on every single boat and, and then running out of food here and there and that kind of stuff. So I built kitchens and put it down there. So revolutionized the way that we dealt with the catering. And then because now I've got a kitchen and it's full time, I thought, well, I better do lunches. So then we started lunches. And then, of course, the natural gap in the afternoon was to do cream teas. And that's what we did.
Right.
So we were maximizing the boat and wetting our assets, as they say. So
anytime I find a place that offers that, mostly in San Francisco when I go back there, but it's the first thing I do. I'm going for tea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And also, tea on a boat is great because, and we don't have to decorate inside of the boat because we just have to have a window because our decoration is the buildings that we're going past. So sightseeing, fantastic. And, sightseeing on a boat, it's my cargo is passengers, and it loads itself, unloads itself, and buys a cup of tea when it's on board. It's a great cargo. And it's a great industry. What you've got to give them is the best boat possible. And one of the things is in this, and we've never mentioned it really, if you get it right, people are not price sensitive. That they don't mind paying a pound more if they feel that they're getting a good value. So
they want the experience.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of what we did really. I just kind of carried on building and then we got through to where was we? So 2005, and I could see that we needed another boat to complement the other boats we'd had, because it was 2000 when that happened. And I got through at 2005, and I could see we needed, and we bought some of the other boats that we were always looking for boats and stuff. And then I started building one in 2005, and she arrived 2012, and she carries 600 passengers and 404 passengers on the top deck. And then she'd go in of an evening, she'd go in and do the dinner cruises as well. It's phenomenal. But you know, when it arrived, you start looking and you start thinking, I don't know how many years left I've got, because with boats, planning them, building them, and then they arrive, and then you've got another 7 years to pay back. You do kind of run out. So by the time we exited, it was a great time to go for us in terms of age. And the guys that came in were, you know, these are the guys that own the they take the ferry to the Statue of Liberty, and they go to the Alcatraz, and they do the Niagara Falls. Plus, they're the biggest boat company in North America. So it was good for them to meet us, come to Europe. And of course, if you're American and going to come to Europe, I guess you want to come to London because it's English speaking, of course.
Well, we want to see, and you said it a minute ago, the buildings. The only reason I would want to go to London, and not now, not these days, but would be for the history and the buildings. That's it. That's all I want to see.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a great it's a great city. It's just, and it's so metropolitan there. It's just phenomenal, and it is steeped in history, of course.
It is very much so.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you. We've got about 10 more minutes, and I've got so many questions. This is a family business. It's family owned, and you just mentioned that you sold it. What was that like? I mean, was it kind of heartbreaking, or was it like, hey, we did it, now we can turn it over to somebody or something else and go do something different? Because you also own Gillingham, I guess that's how you pronounce it, Gillingham Marina.
Yeah, Gillingham Marina. So we've got a
Okay.
marina. It's 20 acres. We've got a couple of thousand people belong to our gym. We've got a gymnasium there as well, swimming pool, gymnasium, and then we've got just over 300 boats moored in the marina. And then we've got a bit of storage stuff going on there as well. And the sites either side of us are popping up with residential stuff on it at the moment. So, you know, we're probably going to sit back and resist that for the time being. But you know, I guess that's an age thing for us when we kind of, you know, slow down. But for us to move, along the way, we'd also bought other sites. We'd gone to York, so that's up in Yorkshire, and we bought the company up there, and we'd bought all the boat companies up there were in one company, and we went along and we bought that company. And that added to London, and it just meant that we could operate satellite operations as well. And then we did the same on the South Coast, and then we had a restaurant ship as well. And then we started running the fast boats as well, the ribs. So there was a number of things to our business. We just needed to carry on growing, and you know that means just carry on investing. And there's no stopping to investing in London. You know, we wasn't a mature business, but you kind of run out of years and money and think, okay, if somebody else is willing to come along and they're going to do the same as we're doing but quicker, then that's fantastic. You know, so you know, exiting. You know, we kind of we're still in business. We just kind of changed what we were doing really. And then, you know, it's a bit like having you know, it's a bit like having two bets, really. You cash one of the bets in, but you still keep the other one going. And I guess that's what we were doing. We were just kind of liquidating some of our assets. And as exciting as it was and as big as that we were getting, I think we moved at the right time. I think we put the processes in place. And one thing that I've always tried to do is to make a business decision and never make an emotional decision.
That's where I was going to ask you. That's what I was trying to get to, and I got distracted. This is a family business, and you guys built it from basically a barge, and you
Yeah.
put so much time and blood and sweat and tears in it. Was there any crying? I mean, was there a point where you just said, I don't want to do this, it's my baby? Or was it, as you just said, purely a business decision? We did it, we built it, we're proud of it, now moving on.
Well, exactly. That's what I thought. We built it. We're proud of it. We're liquidating. Somebody's going to make us an offer that's good. So, we should take that. But also, business buying and it's about timing as well. I think we was the right. I think we was in the right state of mind to go. I think the taxation in the country at that particular time was a good taxation point as well. And it was important that we made business decisions. However, on the last day, I phoned up my son and said, "Right, tell him it's off. It's not. I'm not selling." And then he go, "Oh." And then 10 minutes later, I said, "Tell him it's back on. We're going to take it." And then tell him it's off. So yeah, the last day or a couple of days was very emotional, and the
I can
emotion,
imagine.
it was taking over the business sense. But I knew deep down that it was the right thing to do. And also the responsibility. We had 500 staff. I mean, it was huge,
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
company.
Well, Gary, if you were starting your entrepreneurial journey now, today, would you still choose tourism or would you go in an entirely different path?
Yeah, good question. Um, One of the reasons that I went on the river was because um, it was difficult to get on the river at the time, and I got on there through my father because he'd been Royal Navy in World War II. When he was decommissioned, he was, demobbed. He went Merchant Navy, and then from Merchant Navy he went into Trinity House. These are the guys that look after the lighthouses and lightships, light buoys all around the coast. So
Right.
he went in there, but he still kept in contact with some of his friends that were on the River Thames. So it was kind of easy to get on the River Thames. But once I started in business, um, I realized that a lot of people were frightened of going into businesses that they didn't understand. And people don't understand water and boats. They think, if you don't know what you're doing, the boat's going to sink. And of course, if you don't know what you're doing, then they can do, of course.
Right.
So actually, my protection was that most people didn't want to get involved in the River Thames. So I kind of found it easier. I think if I'd have been shoreside, I'd have had 100 competitors. But I think on the river, I was, with my age and my attitude, I think there was none.
Well, and that was going to be my next question. Did you have a lot of competition? Even in the early days, I'm guessing not, but as you grew and grew and grew, was the competition coming from people who wanted to do what you were doing, or were they trying to sell you?
Well, when we first started, remember I said it was 26 weeks. So
Right.
every boat was an owner operator. So there was no fleet. Nobody had any fleets at the time. It was just an owner operator. So and people didn't really want to buy a second boat. And if they did, they always had problems because they never really had a business. So my protection also was the fact that it was a 26 weeks license. My competition were owner skippers. So nobody, and they were not young, because what was happening was you would buy the boat from the owner because you'd probably been a skipper on there. So when he was going, he
Oh,
the boat.
gotcha.
So the generational gap, the model really was, it was something that's where the cottage industry came. So for me, it was just trying to work out how to do it. How do I run a fleet of boats and don't work on the boats? That's what I was trying to do. Let's buy every boat up and let's rationalize. That's where the profit came. That rationalization was what it was about. And I knew once I'd rationalized, built a new fleet, it was time to go. And it just took me to 2019 to get there. So basically a lifetime to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you this as apropos of nothing much, but you mentioned your mom. Did she live long enough to see what you had built? Because you
Yeah,
said she
my
wasn't
mum
real
was,
happy about your very beginning
yeah,
on the river.
she was lovely, my mum. She was very quiet. Yeah, she had a real tough time when dad left. Then, women weren't paid a fair wage at the time, and so it wasn't unusual for mum to cry herself to sleep. So
Oh,
she was very lovely woman. There was no side to her at all. Very quiet. So yeah, she was just mum, and she got dementia and died when she was 80. So which was a few years ago now. But yeah, she was lovely. Yeah.
but she got to see what you built.
Yeah, oh, very much so. Yeah, and
Oh, good.
of course, she was. We were quite poor growing up, so I never wanted to ask mum for anything. So that kind of drove me to find methods of getting work and things. So I guess there was a little bit of a driving force there. But yeah, it was good. I mean, working on the river's funny. It's good. Yeah, it's great. It's been a great life. So.
I remember you and I talking in the pre-interview because I rarely watch TV, rarely. And if I do, it's because I want to learn something. I'll read all day long, but just half the time I can't find the remote or I can't remember how to operate it. But I came across a show, the boats that were not narrow boats. What are they calling? The boats were in the, oh geez. And I can see it's two actors, Penelope.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Penelope. Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
Tim, I think he passed away.
Tim West. Yeah,
Right, and I was
he went. Yeah,
fascinated. I think they had 18
yeah,
seasons, and over time, I watched all of them. Now, I can't swim, I don't swim, and I get seasick stepping over puddles, so me getting on a boat was never going to be an option. I found their stories, and she had dementia, that's why I mentioned it, but fascinating, absolutely lovely, the places they got to go see and the different boats, and it's
yeah.
fascinating.
And because she was the 40 Towers of
Fawlty Towers, that's
Baz,
exactly right.
Basil's wife.
Yeah, and I hated that show. I
Yeah,
couldn't mostly because I couldn't stand him, but I
yeah.
liked her. But anyway, but yeah, and you and I had talked about that some months ago, and I want to ask you before I reluctantly let you go, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who wants to grow a business without losing its, this is important, its culture or its personal touch?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's no shortcut. That's the one thing I learned. It's just hard work. It's listening to what your customers want, trying to give them what they want. Um,
And sometimes they don't even know what they need, but you have to be in tune with that.
Yeah, and you people, if you ask your bank manager for advice, he would be delighted to give you advice, and so would your accountant, and so would anybody that's in business. Join a trade organization, for example. So in the UK, we had 5,000 new regulations last year. Now you've got to read those 5,000 to find out which one affects you. And then you've got to implement it, and there's normally a cost. And then somehow you've got to update your handbook and your health and safety and your training. So it's far better to belong to a trade organization. And in that trade organization, you will find like-minded people. And if you tell them what your problem is, um, and say, I've got a problem with HR, and somebody in that trade organization to tell you, and they give you the help and advice. And I've just finished book number 2, and we're building a business community now on the basis that we want to be able to help everybody. Um, in the UK, for example, if you become a director, there's no training. If you want to drive a car, you've got to go and get training, and you've got to get a license, and you do a practical and a theory. and you get a license. But if you want to be a director in the UK, there's no training. So that worries me. So I've done a training course which says if there was a basic training course, this is the course that you should take.
Right.
And you just get your class 1. And then if you want to know more, we're building class 2 and we're building class 3. So I'm trying to put this in so that after once I go and meet my maker, then this information is not only there in the book form, because we've got book number 2's finished coming out this month now. And then we've got the book number 3 is about exit strategy. And then we've done loads of filming so that we're building the course over 7 days. And then we've got level 2 and then level 3. And then that'll be there for posterity so that we get all those messages and things out. And it's the stuff I'd learned, really.
And I'm glad you're sharing it. Gary, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or stories you'd like to leave with our audience? And where can they go to connect with you, learn more about your work, and pick up a copy of this book?
Well, we're on Amazon, so the easiest thing is just to go onto Amazon and then put in Gary Beckwith. That's the easiest thing, really. That's the easiest way to do it. So book 1's out now. Book 2 will be out by the end of the month, and then book 3 we're going to be talking probably December or January for book 3. But that's probably the easiest way. We've got a website which is www.garybeckwith.com.
Right.
And LinkedIn, of course. We're quite big on LinkedIn. And then it will pop up about the business community, because that's really going to be exciting. So we're all looking forward to getting involved in that. So yeah, but any stories? There's no shortcut. It's just
Right.
yeah.
And I wrote that down while you said it.
Yeah, I think just ask people if you've got an idea. I remember going to the bank and asking for money really early on, and the bank manager said no. I now realise because I didn't have a business plan, and
You weren't prepared, and you didn't know what to give them because
No.
you had no idea.
And even the business plan. What the business plan does is prove you can run a business or understand the run-ins of a business. If you don't give them a business plan, they don't know. Even if you've got a good idea and you say, no, it's a great idea and make loads of money, it may well do, but I've learned that you just need to have a business plan. So you need to help somebody to go and do it. And also by doing the business plan, you might find some of the flaws before they happen. So
you need professionals, and you always, like you talked about the group of people, you need to find professionals and ask them for help, pay them, do whatever you need to do. Gary, we are running out of time, and you mentioned your next books. I want you to come back in the new year, and it'll have to be the new year because I am now booked, sadly, all the way through February of 2026, which I find shocking, but I am fully booked. But I would love for you to come back in the new year, and we'll pick up where we left off.
let's do it. So
Okay.
to all the listeners in business, pick something that you enjoy doing. So if you can make money out of your hobby, good luck, and just have a great life, and just ask people for help, and they would overflow with kindness in giving you great advice. So
That is true. I have found in the years I've been doing this podcast and owning my own business that ask for help. Entrepreneurs, it's in our DNA. We do want you to succeed. We will help you.
yeah,
There may come a point where you have to pay for our services, but our first instinct is to say, ask what you need. Let me see if I can help you.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, everybody. Gary, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your truly remarkable journey from building city cruises into a household name and to teaching others how to succeed in business with confidence and grit. I'm throwing that in, grit. And whether you're building your first venture or preparing for a major exit, Gary's journey offers a masterclass in resilience, innovation, and the courage to think bigger, always think bigger. And to my audience, if you'd like to learn more about Gary, his work in his book, how to make $1 million in business, visit, like you said, LinkedIn is the best place to go, or Amazon is the best place to go, or go to GaryBeckwith.com. And as always, thank you for tuning in to your partner in Success Radio. Be sure to subscribe, share this episode with your network, get that book, and let me know what resonated with you most. And until next time, I'm Denise Griffitts, helping you build success by learning from today's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and visionary. Gary, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Denise. It's been great chatting.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to having you come back in the new year.
See you soon.
Okay.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.